Hi everyone, it's Miss Murphy here. It's so great to see you all again. I hope you had a wonderful half-term holiday and managed to enjoy the beautiful sunshine that we have been having. Have you all seen the Igniter video for our new topic yet? If you haven't, go and check it out and see if you can work out what our new topic is. Some of the content in our SPAG lesson today will be linked to the topic, so I don't want to give it away before you have had a chance to work it out. We will be starting our new topic text today as well. It's a fabulous book and a really easy listen, so I really hope you will check it out. We will be reading a chapter a night on the Year 4 YouTube playlist. But for now, let's get on with our SPAG video. Today we are going to be learning to proofread and edit our work. This is a really important skill and something that you will be able to use for your whole life when writing. It is something we do a lot at school, using our polishing pen to go over our work when we are finished. We have all been away from school for a while now, so it's important now, more than ever, to make sure we refresh our minds on the things we are looking for when proofreading and editing our own work. So, what is proofreading? Proofreading is the process of looking through your work, finding mistakes and correcting them. It is a very important part of the writing process. Most authors, even famous ones, check and rewrite their stories many times before they are happy to let someone else read them. Take a look at this short clip now, which tells us a bit more about what proofreading is and why it is so important.
So you think you've finished your latest spooky story, do you, Frank? Have you checked it matches your original purpose? That your sentences flow nicely, the words are in the right order, and double-checked your facts? Frank. Imagine the errors you might have made. Does it even make sense? Here, let me take a look. A witch that casts a terrible smell. There's a spelling mistake. A werewolf that howls moonlight. A couple of words missing there, Frank. A vampire wakes up in the sunlight. Vampires during the day? Clearly you haven't checked your vampire facts. The vampire got a stake to her heart. You won't be defeating any vampires with that kind of stake. And it's not just your spelling. Have you checked your grammar? Stop scaring, little children. You don't need that comma. Let's remove it. Spot on, Frank. Checking your writing before you show it to anyone is as important as watching where you're going.
So, for our first starter activity, I want you to have a go at practicing your proofreading skills by finding the mistakes. You can find them by pausing the screen in a second and just pointing to them. There is no need to write anything down for this starter task. There are 8 mistakes in my sentences. Can you spot all of them? Think about punctuation and spelling as you are reading through the sentences. Pause the video now to see if you can spot the mistakes in the sentences. Okay, let's take a look together and see if you found all of the mistakes. I'm just going to underline where there's a mistake and correct it on top using my purple polishing pen. So, for the first sentence, we needed to start with a capital letter. So I'm just going to put a little underline there and a capital T above. We must remember that every sentence starts with a capital letter. The ancient Egyptians were an ancient civilization which existed from 3100 to 332 BC. Now, if I remember correctly, when I look at the timeline in our classroom, BC needs to have capital letters. So I'm going to underline that and write BC above it. It always has capital letters. And, at the end of our sentence, we need a full stop. So, there was 3 mistakes in that one. Let's move on to sentence 2. They lived in the lower end of the River Nile. Now, I've immediately realised I've forgotten my capital letter again, so I need to put a capital T there to start my sentence. They lived in the lower end of the River Nile. I've spotted something in Nile. I know that Nile needs a capital N because it is the name of a place, the River Nile. So I'm going to underline the N and give it a big capital N, the River Nile, full stop. Fantastic. Okay, let's take a look at sentence 3. They were successful due to their skills in medicine, farming and construction. Well done, I remembered my capital letter for this sentence. They were successful due to their skills. I've noticed a spelling mistake here. I've used the wrong there. because it's their skills, the skills that belong to them, we need THEIR. Their skills in medicine, farming and construction. Oh, I've missed out a comma. I'm listing what they were successful in: medicine, farming and construction. So I need to put a comma between medicine and farming. Medicine, farming and construction. Oh, I'm thinking back to Miss Bridgewater's spelling video on the shun suffix. Construction. Now I put the root word construct, but then I've added the TION on the end. I didn't need to add TION, I just needed to add ION because it already ended with a T. So I'm just going to cross out that T there. There we go, there are our 8 mistakes. I hope you managed to find them all. For our next starter, you are going to have a go at correcting the punctuation and spelling mistakes yourself. Read my sentence carefully and find the mistakes. There may be more than one in each sentence. Choose what you need from this line below to correct the sentence. You may not need all of these letters or punctuation marks. Some may be there just to throw you off. Here is sentence 1. Pause the video and work out how you would edit my sentence and what you would use to correct it. So, let's take a look and see how you got on. You may have noticed all of the mistakes here were capital letters. We need to make sure we are using a capital letter for the names of the Egyptians, the Romans and the Greeks. They are nouns, which is why we need a capital letter. We also need a capital letter at the beginning of our sentence, and as we saw in our first starter, we need a capital letter for B, C. So, we needed a capital T, we needed a capital E, we needed a capital G, a capital R, and capital B, C for BC. We had our full stop in, we didn't need an exclamation mark, we didn't need a comma or an apostrophe in this sentence. You did so well on the sentence before, I've given you a longer piece of writing here to correct. So, pause the video again, proofread my writing and find out what mistakes I have made using the corrections in the line below. Okay, I had to go at correcting my writing whilst you were busy doing the same. You may have noticed that most of the mistakes I made here were punctuation errors. I forgot my full stop before my new sentence. I didn't put a comma after however, which is what I used to open up my sentence. If we are starting a sentence with however, it must have a comma after it. I also forgot to put a comma in my expanded noun phrase, green, lush, land. And I didn't put a comma here in my list, water, plants and animals. We needed a comma between the first 2 items in my list. I also needed a full stop at the end of my sentence. Some of you with big beady eyes may have also noticed that I didn't put a capital N for my River Nile like I did already, and I used the wrong suffix for civilization. The shun suffix sounds like shun, shun, but that's not how we spell it. We spell it using TION, civilization. I hope you got on well with that. Let's move on to our next activity. Now, because I'm new to Year 4 this year, I've been doing some reading about the ancient Egyptians over the half-term holiday. I wrote down some sentences and have sent them to Mrs. Smith to have a look at. She has sent me a video back with some verbal feedback. Shall we watch it together?
Thanks for sending me over your writing, Miss Murphy. It looks like you found some fantastic facts about our new topic. Can you have a go at proofreading it now? Remember our Year 4 writing objectives. You could even check out the YouTube videos to help you. Then, can you have a go at editing? Good luck.
Thanks, Mrs. Smith. Great advice. Okay, I better proofread my sentences then and find and edit any mistakes I have made myself. I'm going to go have a go at the first one as a my turn, and then there'll be a your turn for a few more for you to have a go at. I'm going to edit it with my purple pen and then write it up neatly underneath. So, my turn first. Let's read the whole piece of writing together and then we can go through it with the purple pen, editing any mistakes as we go along. On the land, the Egyptians grew a large variety of crops, including wheat, barley, figs and melons. The Nile's water kept the soil fertile. The Egyptians used an invention called a shadoof to water the crops as they didn't have a hose pipe. Now, just from reading it one time, I've already spotted quite a few mistakes I have made in my writing, so I'm going to take my purple pen and go through it and edit as I go along. On the land, the Egyptians grew... I've already realised that is a fronted adverbial, and I know from my Year 4 objectives that after a fronted adverbial we must put in a comma. So on the land, the Egyptians, oh, I remember my capital letter, good job Miss Murphy. The Egyptians grew a large variety of crops, including, now I think I've put in a list here of the things that they grow, a list of crops, and I remember that in a list I need to include commas. So, crops including wheat, comma, barley, comma, figs and melons. Now, I think that's going to be the end of my sentence because I'm going to go on to a new topic here. So after melons, I'm going to put in my full stop. I've got my capital letter there already. The Nile's water, the water belongs to the Nile. So I think instead of just Niles with an S straight on the end, we need to put in a possessive apostrophe. I've remembered that from Mrs. Bridgewater's video before the half-term holiday. So I'm going to rewrite that above, Nile, and then I'm going to do an apostrophe S. The Nile's water, much better. Kept the soil fertile. Full stop, new sentence, capital letter, perfect. The Egyptians, goodness me, Miss Murphy, you silly thing. You weren't concentrating when you wrote this. The Egyptians, capital letter for Egyptians as it's a noun. The Egyptians used an invention. Ooh. I remember from the spelling video that we had before half term that CIAN is used as a suffix for jobs like magician, musician. Now, an invention is not a job, so that's the wrong suffix to use for invention. The root word is invent. I'm going to cross out CION and I'm going to put ION. I don't need to put TION because it already ends in a T. Invention. Called a shadoof. To water the crops as they... Now I'm looking at that apostrophe there. I don't think we need the apostrophe there. We don't need it to be a possessive apostrophe because it's just talking about the crops. So we need to get rid of that and we need to join the S onto the end of crops. As they didn't have a hose pipe. Now I know this is a contraction, so I do need an apostrophe there, but it's did not. The apostrophe needs to replace the O. So I've put the apostrophe in the wrong place. I'm going to just write it underneath because I've got a little bit more space here. It needs to be DIDN apostrophe T. The apostrophe replaced the O in that word. They didn't have a hose pipe, full stop. There we go. I proofread my sentences by reading them along. I've gone through with my purple pen and corrected any errors. I'm now going to write my sentence up neatly underneath. Okay, now it's your turn to proofread and edit my sentences. Hopefully Mrs. Smith will be really chuffed with us if we have a go at this. Pause the video so you can see my sentences. You can either copy them down, edit them with your editing pen and write it out neatly underneath like I did, or you could just write a list of the mistakes I've made in each sentence, or even just write down the sentence correctly on your paper. Thanks so much for helping me, Year 4. Let's see if we can proofread, find all the mistakes, edit, and then we will check together. Off you go, your turn now. Okay, let's do a check now. We will go through each sentence or piece of writing and find out what the errors were and how you could have edited them to make the sentence or piece of writing correct. So for the first sentence, in ancient Egypt, we needed a comma after that fronted adverbial. The pharaohs were the kings and queens of the kingdom. We needed a full stop at the end of that. The strong, powerful pharaoh needed a comma between strong and powerful because it is an expanded noun phrase. The strong, powerful pharaoh, who was the most important person in the land, we need a comma either side of this relative clause, who was the most important person in the land, was in charge of the government, full stop. For sentence number 2, we also needed a comma after the fronted adverbial. After death, the pharaohs of Egypt were mummified and buried in elaborate giant tombs. Again, we needed a comma in between elaborate and giant for our two adjectives to describe the tomb. The sentence needed a full stop at the end of it. For our third piece of writing, we also needed a comma after the fronted adverbial. During the mummification, which took 70 days, The Egyptians removed moisture and the dead body's organs. Here I had used the possessive apostrophe incorrectly. It needs to be body apostrophe s because the organs belong to the bodies. We had a full stop at the end of that sentence, so we needed to open up our next sentence with a capital letter. They put the organs in canopic jars. Full stop. For the next piece of writing, so is being used to show the consequence of something. It's being used as a coordinating conjunction, so it needs to have a comma before it. The ancient Egyptians believed that if a person was mummified, that they would live forever. So they built tombs to keep their bodies in. You might have noticed I also used the wrong there. We needed their bodies, T-H-E-I-R. The bodies belong to them, their bodies in. For the last sentence, the Sphinx had the body of a regal wild lion. Again, we needed a comma between our two adjectives in our expanded noun phrase, and the head of a strong, mighty pharaoh. Full stop, capital letter. Again, the Sphinx's body. I did my possessive apostrophe incorrectly. I put Sphinx apostrophe es. It sounds a bit like that when you say it, Sphinx says, but it's just a s. Sphinx apostrophe s. Body guarded the pyramid from harm. Thank you so much for helping me proofread and edit many mistakes I made in my writing. It is so important to make sure that we are checking our own work all the time. As we learnt earlier, it is an integral part of the writing process. Before we move on to our extra hot task that I want everyone to have a go at today, I would like you to take some time to write a couple of your own sentences about ancient Egypt now and proofread them yourselves. You can find out some facts about ancient Egypt using the internet or Twinkle, or the books on readon.myon, which is linked on your ancient Egypt topic grid, and you could write them down in your own words. Or you could use some sentence starters that I'm going to show you in a second. The aim is to just write a few short sentences or paragraphs and then proofread, check and edit your own work, thinking about all the things we have just looked at in the My Turn and the Your Turn sections. So pause the video now to have a go, or carry on for a couple of seconds to see the sentence starters that I'm going to provide for you to have a go at writing your own sentences to proofread and edit. If you want to have a go at writing your own sentences about ancient Egypt, maybe some descriptive sentences that you might be able to use in a story, you could have a go at using some of these sentence starters and some of these words in your sentences. So if you'd like to use this, pause the video now, have a go at writing your own sentences, but remember the main aim is to proofread and edit your own sentences before you let anyone else read them. Great job everyone, fantastic. You can send in any of your work that you've done to the Year 4 email address. I know myself and the rest of the teachers would love to see your growth mindsets in action as you perfect your sentences. Now, it's time for the extra hot. I'm going to give Chili 1, 2 and 3 challenges for this task, so absolutely everyone is encouraged to have a go. If you want to take a little break, you can pause the video now and come back to the extra hot challenge at a later stage during the week if that will be easier. I have written a short story. It's a good start, but the spelling, punctuation and grammar definitely needs proofreading, and that's going to be your job. The story was sent to you in a Word document along with the links to the YouTube lesson videos this morning. You could either print the story out and edit it with your polishing pen by crossing out mistakes and adding in corrections. If you don't have a printer, don't worry. I'm going to show you the story here, and you could write a list of all the mistakes you spot in your home learning books or on paper instead. Stay tuned for the story. Okay, let's have a quick look at the story together before I show you your chilly challenges and you can get on with proofreading and editing the story. On Monday, Year 4 went to visit the History Museum. The guide stopped at each display to tell the children about the different artefacts. When they reached the Egyptian display, Emily became fascinated by the ancient curious artefacts. A scarab beetle who had shiny glittering wings caught her attention. The beetle's green and blue body shimmered like an iridescent gemstone, and its elongated feelers stretched towards her. As Year 4 meandered into the Viking section, Emily waited. As soon as they had gone, she reached out and touched the beetle's body. She felt a hot stabbing pain and withdrew her hand as if she had been stung. A moment later, she was standing at the edge of a desert. Large, sand-coloured pyramids jutted upwards and a big raging river flowed by. Emily knew exactly where she was, because she had seen similar images in her library book. A procession wound its way from the river towards Emily. At the front there was a tall man dressed as Anubis, god of the afterlife. Anubis, who was wearing a jackal's mask, strode towards her. She could hear drums beating, rattles shaking, and the procession sung a low chant. 6 men carried a huge golden stand on which there was a throne. They looked like magicians. As she sat on her elaborate throne, a pretty woman surveyed the procession. She was the only person without a mask, and she was pointing right at Emily. Without thinking, Emily dashed towards a door set into the closest pyramid. Inside it was much cooler than outside in the hot sandy desert. As quick as a flash, she began to run down a passageway. torches burned to light the way ahead. On the walls, she saw carved images, an owl, fish, warriors and hieroglyphs that were hard to understand. She could hear voices shouting and the sound of running feet behind her, but the way ahead was blocked. Spinning round, she found the jackal standing in her path. The mask seemed to grin. Something began to itch against her leg. In the blink of an eye, she saw the beetle glittering. Emily recognised the green and red shining in the torchlight. She reached down, touched the beetle, and once again felt a hot, sharp, stabbing pain. Before long, she was back in the museum, with Mrs. Jones striding towards her. "The museum has been closed for half an hour. We're all in the coach. Where have you been?" Mrs. Jones asked. "In Egypt," Emily stammered. But Mrs. Jones didn't look at all pleased with her answer. She had a cross expression on her face. Well, hurry now, the coach is waiting," Mrs. Jones replied. "Sorry, I'm coming now," Emily said, with a grin on her face. So, here are your chilli challenges for our extra hot challenge today. For chilli 1, I want you to find punctuation errors in the story. For chilli 2, I want you to find spelling errors within the story. And chilli 3, I want you to find grammatical errors within the story. So, for the punctuation mistakes, look carefully at all of my sentences. Sometimes I might have missed punctuation out. Sometimes I might have added it in when it's not needed or used it incorrectly. For the spelling mistakes, think about the spelling rules we have learnt recently on our YouTube video lessons. For the grammatical mistakes, think about all of our Year 4 writing objectives and things that we put into our writing to make it more interesting. Relative clauses, subordinate conjunctions, coordinating conjunctions, fronted adverbials, expanded noun phrase, all the things that you have in your head that make you a fantastic writer. Think, have I followed the steps to success when including these in my writing? If I haven't, you need to edit them for me. So, again, here is the story I have written. Pause the video, proofread and edit the mistakes that you find. If you have printed it out, you could correct using a polishing pen. If you can't print it out, you could just write a list of the mistakes you find, or you could write the story out correctly on paper if that's what you fancy. Have a go now and see how you get on. Hi again, how did you get on? You have all been sent a sheet with the correct story on it. There is one sheet where I have highlighted where all the errors were, and then another sheet with the correct version of the story for you to go through and check to see if you managed to find all the mistakes. I'll show you them now, but they were attached to the email that you were sent with the links to the YouTube videos earlier on. Here is the highlighted version of the story of where all the mistakes were. As you can see, I made quite a lot, so it's really good that I went through and proofread my work. I haven't added in the corrections here. I'm going to show you that on the next slide now. But if you haven't managed to find them all, you can have a look at them here and see what I needed to do to correct my work. And here is the correct version of the story with all the mistakes edited and checked and made correct. You can have a read through of it now and check that you've found them all. Well done, Year 4, what a fantastic job. It was a very long story to proofread and edit, but I know you all had a really good go. Well done. I can't believe just how much we managed to fit into that spag lesson today. I feel like my mind is going to explode, but you've really helped me proofread, check and edit all of my work. I know Mrs. Smith's going to be really proud of us and all the other Year 4 teachers. Now, if you are still looking for a writing task to keep you busy and are up for an extra hot challenge, you could choose 1 or 2 paragraphs from my short story and rewrite them yourself. You can focus on improving the quality by adding in more detail and description. You might want to up-level my vocabulary. You might want to vary my sentence openers or add in different sentence structures to make the story more interesting. You may want to see if you could add in any adverbs or adjectives at different places in the story. Let us know how you get on and send in any work to the Year 4 email address. I know all the teachers are looking really closely at all your work to see who could be a home learning hero for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in to our spag video this week. Keep sending in all your work. It's so lovely to see what you've all been up to, and hopefully we'll see you all soon. Bye, Year 4.